Show me what you got.
Hey guys and geeks, welcome back to the Geek Critique Show. We're your hosts. I'm Jen.
I'm Dakota.
And we're going to talk about a little thing called The Last Jedi. Don't know if you've heard of it.
Probably have.
Most likely. Unless you're living like in the wilderness.
We're going to be starting with a non-spoiler review of The Last Jedi. Then we're going to talk a little bit about spoilers. If you want to just skip to the spoiler part, we'll leave a little tag to jump to.
By the way, this is Bernie, my brother's puppy.
Yes, we're looking after him.
We watch him sometimes.
The Last Jedi reached $220 million at the domestic box office this past weekend, its first weekend, which is more than the entire run of Justice League reached in over a month. That's the kind of power that these films have over the box office. It's a juggernaut that will easily clear $1 billion. It's the highest grossing film ever on its opening weekend, only second to The Force Awakens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is like $249 million. I think the record will really be challenged next year once Infinity War drops. I think that is really going to just destroy the box office records. But we'll see, especially in comparison to these two Star Wars films. Now, let's talk about The Last Jedi a little bit. A lot of people really liked it. The critics especially. I think it's sitting at a 93% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. That's certified fresh. The audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes is telling a different story, however. Though I will say audience ratings can be tempered with by a large enough group of fans. If a large enough group of fans are angry enough with a film, they can go and just downvote it until it's where it is right now in the low 50s with its audience score. Because, and the reason I say it's definitely tampered with is because the audience, I think the cinema score, which is like an approval rating based on audience reaction immediately, is at an A. So audiences clearly like the film.
Okay. I feel like I see a lot of people who do not like it, though.
Those are the loudest fans, that's the thing.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Now, and there's nothing wrong with not liking the film.
Like for me, I left the theater not sure how to feel. Like when we first watched it, I left it like I didn't have an emotion. Like I was just like,
it's an uneasy feeling.
Yeah, it just felt different.
Yeah.
You know, which isn't a bad thing. But I just it wasn't the same feeling like I left with The Force Awakens. Force Awakens just felt more familiar, I guess, because it was so similar to A New Hope. But with this, I just left, like, we went and saw it with his family, and all of us were just kind of like usually we have a big discussion, oh, I like this part, oh, I like this, I like that, and we all just kind of looked at each other, and I was like, so?
Did you like
it? What do we think? And nobody seemed to know what to say. Like, that was the first time I think that's ever happened after a movie with all of us. We were all just like,
if you haven't seen the film, you will get that feeling. Like, it's an uneasy, I'm not sure if I love it or I hate it. And some of you will hate it, and that's fine. That's part of fandom. But, and I have a feel, like, there's some people, like, actively opposing what Disney's doing with Star Wars. They think it's being ruined, blah, blah, blah.
Sacrilegious.
No, it's fine if you don't like a thing. You're not obliged to like literally every episode of a TV show that you like. You're not obliged to like every film in a franchise that you like. And realistically, like any fan of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there's a film that you don't like in that batch. But if you're so angry with something like this, if you're so adamantly opposed to a direction that the thing is going, don't worry. There are plenty of other IPs out there that are doing really good right now. There's plenty of other franchises and TV shows and movies.
Yeah, but that's easy to say, like, if for some people, Star Wars is more than just a franchise.
I agree with that.
And, like, Star Wars is a really big thing to tamper with.
Sure, but it's a big universe. We're getting a film every year. There's going to be a film that you like eventually. The way I feel coming out of this movie is what I imagine fans of the first Star Wars felt after they saw Empire Strikes Back and found out who Luke's father really is. I feel like that really shook a lot of, especially the young people, because when you think of a proper father figure, Vader definitely isn't. And I think there's a lot of those little scenes in this film, not necessarily an I am your father scene, per se. Enough twists and turns that you weren't expecting made it in this film, you know?
Yeah. And I just think, too, that there's a lot of mystique. even in The Force Awakens and in this, there's a lot of scenes, which I think is cool, and I really liked this about the original series, that go completely unexplained. And you're just kind of like, okay.
Some stuff is almost like up for fan interpretation.
I don't know if like maybe they'll be answered, you know, in this upcoming film, but yeah, just like a lot of stuff is just like, well, what about this? Like, what did that person mean? Or why did they say that? Or, you know, even in The Force Awakens, there's that whole conversation with Han and Rey where it seems pretty clear to me that Han knew exactly who she was, and that's why he asked her to go on board the Millennium Falcon. But a lot of people didn't seem to get that, but then I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. So it kind of leaves like a lot of situations like that where you're like, when you get down to it and talk to it with people, I think like it's very impressionable. Is that the right word? Like it leaves a lot of different impressions. Like
yeah, it's definitely
open ended.
Yes.
And I wonder how much, you know, and I think it's not a very good thing that they're switching up the directors a lot. Like I think having one director would be much better with this trilogy.
Yes.
Because it felt different from The Force Awakens to me, and I feel like the harmony of the original trilogy was beautiful.
Okay, fair enough. I will say that yes, it did feel like Rian Johnson was being reactionary. He saw the criticisms of Force Awakens and paved a path that he knew no one was going to share the same complaints with The Force Awakens as they were with this film. Obviously, he realized that people would be up in arms about some of the decisions made in this film. He's gone on record as saying as such, like, so has Mark Hamill. Like, are you sure Luke Skywalker would do these kind of things, blah, blah, blah. And ultimately, you kind of have to really think about the decisions that these characters would make, or the growth of these characters, or degrowth in certain respects that they would eventually make in their lifetime. But I don't want to spend this entire review apologizing for the film. There are some things I really loved. There are some things, some twists that I totally did not foresee.
Yeah. And some that it's like, how did I not see that coming? But you still don't see it coming.
And there was stuff I didn't like about the film. And I can just go ahead and say, like, the Finn and Rose stuff. I
liked it.
I did not. And the reason I didn't was a little bit spoilery. So, is there anything else you want to talk about in the non-spoiler section?
Just, like, a couple more things, like, in the spoilery, as far as character development goes, kind of like what Mark Hamill said, like, would Luke do some of these things? And I could see, because Dakota, there was one scene where he said that, like, I don't know if Luke is like that, and I'm like, actually, I could kind of picture it. Like, he was extremely young and stressed out in the original trilogy. And I feel like now he's kind of had some time, you know, on Ahch-To to kind of kick it and, like, be himself. But I think he was really stressed out, and he really liked Leia, and he was trying to impress, and he was trying to prove himself. And, you know, the only things that he knew prior, like his aunt and uncle, were dead. So, you know, that's going to really throw you for a loop. Yeah, he just seemed, like, really whiny and stressed out to me.
Okay. And I think to really explain what we're talking about, you kind of have to...
Yeah, we'll go into the spoilery section, and then there's...
Before we get into spoilers, I want to give a thanks to our latest patron, Ron Hinton. I feel like now that, like, one or two people are, like, joining our Patreon cause to, you know, just help fund the show, more people are, like, getting on board with that, and that's really awesome. Thank you so much, Ron. And all of you guys who have been our patrons for the longest time.
Yeah.
You may notice that there is a scrolling text on the screen for our patrons who, this is a random, like, pull. It's kind of like pulling a little name from a hat, and it's a random shout out. So thank you all for whoever is willing to help fund this content. We've kind of talked between us, and we've come up with, like, if 20% of our audience were able to just give $1, that would alleviate all, like, secular needs, and we could focus on this as our primary job, which would be awesome. I know it's a pipe dream, but we really do appreciate each and every one of you guys for your help on the show.
Also, too, I never thought that we would even get to this point. Like, I remember when we started this, Dakota was like, yeah, and, like, imagine, you know, if we get a lot of followers, and, like, look at all these YouTubers doing all these things, and in my head, I was like, I didn't want to be a dream crusher, but I was like, that's literally never going to happen. So I was just like, sure, you know, thinking like this is a fun thing for us as a couple to do together. And it has been. It's been really fun, and we have a lot of great memories with the show, and we've met a lot of really cool people. So I'd like to thank you all, even if you can't contribute. Just in general, the community has been so helpful to me in so many ways, so thank you.
All right, so on to spoilers. This is your warning. We highly recommend you not watch the rest of this video if you have not watched the film. This is one of those movies you want to go in blind. You don't want to know what happens. But this is your last warning, because in 5 seconds I will tell you that Snoke dies. Snoke dies. He dies right off the bat. It's literally like the second act of the film.
And his corpse is just chilling on the floor for the third act.
Cut in half. Not so clean, so fine was that cut. It also cut off his arms. Like, it just went through one arm.
I know, and then his arms were still sitting there. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so gross.
In true Star Wars fashion, someone's arm gets chopped off. And you may be wondering, well, who got their arm chopped off in The Force Awakens? It was actually in a deleted scene. Unkar Plutt got his arm ripped off by a Wookiee. That being Chewbacca. Yeah,
that was not a Chewbacca noise. Take that out. I don't know how to do it.
So what did you think of that scene?
I thought it was really interesting. I have like both good and bad things to say about that scene. So I'll start with the good. I really loved the creative new way that Rey and Kylo were battling. I mean, that's something that we were all looking forward to, I think, for more epic Jedi battle scenes. And we got a really good one. Though,
I will say, technically there were no lightsaber duels in this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's because they didn't fight each other, but I thought it was still really cool and really interesting.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a missed opportunity on John Williams' part not to do some, like, really great, you know, big chorus, you know, like we saw in the prequels.
Like in Duel of the Fates.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful and so incredible, and I was kind of hoping that we would get some of that again, and we didn't, and I thought that scene would have been amplified with that. The music was creatively placed throughout the film, but I thought in that scene that would have been so cool, just because of how grand everything was in Snoke's little office, whatever you call it.
In his throne room?
In his throne room. In his office. That sounds really silly.
I love those Praetorian guards, though.
I love them, but so that's another complaint that I have, is that we never got to see them, like, fighting, like, to their fullest potential. It's almost like we saw them...
Maybe we did, and that was their fullest potential.
No, I'm saying, like, against... I don't know, I just feel like the only time we saw them fight, they lost. Like, I would have liked to have seen... I guess I don't know how they would have written that, but somewhere at the beginning, see them just, like, tearing up. They're still really cool, and their moves were pretty sweet, but... sweet moves. But I wish we had seen them, like, you know, dominating earlier in the film, and then that would have shown how difficult they would have been to fight when it came to Rey and Kylo. But it was like killing Snoke was the hard part, and then, and now we have to take his goonies down.
His goonies?
What's the word that I'm looking for?
His goons, yeah.
His goons.
Take down Sean Astin and friends. Poor little kids.
No, that's for the prequels.
Ooh.
Burn.
Being someone who has tons of Snoke theories just, like, lined up, like, this, like, I have, like, a bunch of Snoke theories that I'm always constantly, like, balancing, like, no, maybe he is a Darth Plagueis type character, or he's maybe more like a ancient Force vampire who's constantly taking from other people's Force powers. I don't know. I was happy that they just trolled the audience. Didn't tell us a thing about him.
I think we're going to find out more about him, because there's no way he's that crazy, ridiculously powerful, and we're not going to find out anything.
Not in the movies. Maybe in an anthology movie. Moving
you don't
forward,
think people, like, watching the next film, people aren't going to be like, what was up with that dude?
I think people watching this film are thinking, what was up with that dude? But now he currently does not matter to the plot that is what is happening with the Resistance and what is happening with the First Order. He is no longer important, so he will not be even, he might be mentioned, but we're not gonna learn anything about his character, maybe through flashbacks a little bit, but
maybe. I don't know.
He's no longer important, and that's the cool part for me, is that this character that we thought was going to be like the big Palpatine type character of the sequel trilogy is now just as easily thrown away as Darth Maul was in the first film.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's probably going to stay dead, because we know Darth Maul lived after that, but he looked pretty dead.
Yeah, just seeing like his face on the ground, like they made it pretty clear you did.
I think we obviously will get more on Snoke in like the follow-up novels and comic series, but I don't think he's important enough for the saga moving forward.
Okay. Interesting. We'll see. We'll see about that. I thought that the scene following that where Hux comes in and is about to kill Kylo, and then Kylo wakes up and he's like, oh, act natural, and then he's like, we don't have a leader, and Kylo's like, what are you gonna do about it? Suck it.
Hux, man.
Hux.
I think Domhnall Gleeson did a good job.
Yeah, I like him a lot as an actor. Yeah, I thought that scene with him and Poe, we have like mixed reviews on that in the beginning, was like, I was just confused about that joke. Like, I didn't really understand at first, but then watching it the second time, I thought it was funny. The first time around, I was like, let's move forward. What's going on? What's happening?
I like that. I thought it was hilarious. It set the tone of the film as slightly less serious. But it's hard to keep that up when people are literally giving their lives up.
Yeah, that's to me what it was. Like, people are, like, dying, and it's like, and I get it, like, that's kind of, there's always, like, witty banter going on, you know, in Star Wars. I just felt like the gravitas of the situation suddenly shifted to humor and then went back to, like, really intense, and I was like, okay. I guess Star Wars always does stuff like that, though.
It does. Sometimes it's a little more
that
subtle.
one was, like, drawn out, that joke, to me, where it wasn't just, like, you know, something silly. But then when he says, you know, Leia has an important message for you about your mom, that I thought was pretty funny.
My favorite joke
you
of
don't
the
talk
entire
about someone's
film,
mom.
My favorite joke of the entire film was when, I think it was the second or third time that Kylo Ren and Rey linked minds. She's like, I don't want to do this. Or, yeah, I don't want to do this right now. And she's not looking at him, and we just hear him say, yeah, me neither. And you turn around and he's like half undressed, and it's so perfect.
Yeah, that was really funny. It's
Don't
like
you
going
have
into
a
the
cowl or something you could put on?
I liked that too, because it's like going into the grocery store and seeing someone that you don't like. You just don't feel like talking. You're like, I don't want to do this right now.
It was doubly funny because of the irony of what Kylo was doing. Let's talk a little bit about some of the new Force powers that we saw evident in this film. Let's start with the Rey and Kylo stuff.
Okay.
This isn't actually the first time we've seen this power. We saw it in Rebels once with Yoda and Ezra.
Master Yoda, you're here.
Oh, here you are. Hmm?
Last time I couldn't see you.
Growing your abilities are.
Remember, Ezra was in that Force Temple, and Yoda kind of just projected an image of just the both of them. And notice how in that scene in Rebels, it was also like they could only see each other.
Okay.
Like they couldn't see their surroundings at all. I thought that was well done, and how they incorporated that in Rebels, kind of like leading up to this film. They hinted at what was coming. I thought that power was cool. I like how they early on explained like how are you able, or yeah, Kylo says like how are you able to keep this connection? It would basically kill you, and later we find out
foreshadowed.
That foreshadowed what would happen when Luke did it, but to a far greater extent. Like he was able to physically manifest himself to everyone, robot and human alike.
Even tricking Leia.
Yes, tricking Leia. He was even able to make physical contact with Leia.
And to create that little thing from the
dice.
The dice, because then after Luke dies, a little bit after, Kylo's holding it and it, disappears.
Yeah. So it even lasted longer than. It was almost like that was intended to be found by Kylo.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's true. And then to trick all of those soldiers, but because then after so Kylo goes like, point every gun you have on that man, and after that when Luke didn't die, I was like expecting to see something like covering him or like, you know, I was just like, what the heck? Are they not going to explain, like, how he did that? Like, I just remember being shocked. You know,
I
like,
think everyone was.
It's just like, what does that mean? Like, what is that? But then if you notice, he has his lightsaber, which is the one that Rey and Kylo had just destroyed. And now he's battling Kylo with the lightsaber that Kylo just destroyed. And Kylo's too consumed with all his silly little emotions to even, like, put two and two together. Like, that doesn't even exist anymore. What is going on here? Yeah. And then I thought it was great, like, they're showing their feet, like, shifting, you know, as they battle. And the sand under Luke's feet didn't move.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. And, oh, why did you say before that there wasn't a lightsaber battle when there was with Kylo and Luke?
There was no physical lightsaber touching.
Oh, that's true. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Because it wasn't actually there. See? Tricked
me
again.
No, Luke didn't touch lightsabers with Kylo. He dodged everything.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah.
He probably knew that would have given it away.
It would have given it away, yes, exactly. Sound. Yeah. There was a lot, like, in that scene that should have given it away. The first thing that popped out to me was just, like, why does Luke not have the gray beard like he did on Ahch-To? He had the brown beard like he did in the flashbacks. That didn't give it away to me, obviously. I thought, like, oh, maybe he cleaned himself up, added a little touch of color onto his...
I picture those, like, little old ladies, like, crushing up dye for him.
Oh, the caretakers?
They're so cute.
Yo, you're the only one who thought those were cute.
I love them. They're ugly. So cute.
And like you said, yeah, like his footsteps weren't producing like the under like red body of the salt. After he gets shot up all those times, he kind of mimes like to get the dust off his shoulder, but there was no dust on his shoulder.
Oh, that's true, actually.
He was totally fine. I thought he would just be like covered in red. Nothing. He had no dust on him at all.
Squeaky clean.
Squeaky clean. Oh, and what we were talking about earlier with, like, Luke wouldn't have acted in such a way. I thought there were certain things that Luke did, specifically, like, dialogue-wise, that was more Mark Hamill and less Luke Skywalker. And you were right. He was very uptight in his youth. He was trying to be older than he actually was. He was a kid when he was learning. I mean, not a kid. He was an adult, but he was a kid when he was...
he was just very young and inexperienced and trying to impress.
Yes, versus in this film, he kind of let himself loose.
Yeah, and like even his humor was coming out. One of my favorite jokes of the whole film was when he tells Rey to reach out and she's like that. Because like Rey, I'm also a very literal being and I can completely see myself doing that exact same thing. Like that. And he whacks her hands with the leaf. And I was just cracking up. And like stuff like that, you're like, would Luke do that? Like you never see Luke really joking around a lot. But I think it's because it was such a difficult time and he was trying to figure himself out, whereas now he's had a lot of time alone and, you know, a lot more time to just kind of sit back and laugh at life, you know, even though he has a lot of regret and a lot of anger or, you know, yeah, I guess anger. So if you guys are wondering what I mean by I'm a literal being, the other day a friend of mine ordered a drink called the Old Timer, and I said, oh, what's an Old Timer? She's like, oh, it's like your drink but served with time. And I said, what do they, like, put an hourglass on the bar and leave it there for a little while? Like, and
for those of you not old enough to realize, like, what she means by it's served with time, T-H-Y-M-E. Like,
like the herb.
Like the herb.
I was like, what is it? Just, it's like my drink, but it just sits there and, like, the ice melts. Like, I literally did not understand. Like, I wasn't trying to say, like, a dad joke. Like, I didn't, like, maybe that's not literal. Maybe that's just dumb. I don't know.
Going back to the part where Luke does the thing with the little palm leaf. That's something that I've noticed with Daisy Ridley is that she isn't able to not smile in scenes that are clearly meant to be funny. Like there's a scene in The Force Awakens where it just takes me out of the film when she's trying to pretend like she doesn't know Luke Skywalker, and she's clearly having a joke with the actor John Boyega, and she's just like, you could tell like she's like about to just like break down into like hysterical like fits of laughter. In this film, at that moment, she does it again, like. It's cute, but it takes me out, and that's why
okay.
That's why that joke didn't land with me. I think.
See, I wouldn't have noticed that. I just thought it was really funny.
I'm really like conscious of like when stuff like that happens
yeah.
to actors. Another thing I'm really conscious of is CGI mixed with practical effects, which is what happened when Yoda appeared.
Yeah, a lot of people were freaked out by his appearance. I mean, Yoda always looks weird to me, so I don't really question it.
We know that it was a puppet. We know that that was supposed to be like the original look for Yoda in the original trilogy. But his face looks like it was touched up with CGI in the very first shot that we see him. It's almost like softened, and it doesn't look like the Yoda that we got in Empire. And that's what bothered me. In my mind, the Yoda from Empire looked more real than this Yoda did.
Huh. That's strong words.
But I did love that scene. That's actually one of my favorite scenes for a number of reasons. It gave me my favorite line from the movie, where Yoda kind of like comforts Luke and says, "We are what they grow beyond." That's just such a profound like notion. And obviously Yoda would be the one to give that. If I had any problems with that scene, it would be that Ewan McGregor didn't show up.
Yeah.
It just seemed like such an obvious inclusion that was removed, or didn't exist in the first place. I don't know if it was removed or not, but that was something that was the biggest surprise of the film for me, that Obi-Wan was not in it. I thought for sure Obi-Wan was going to be in the movie.
Yeah.
Maybe, like, because I expected a lot more old Jedi mysticism.
And especially, too, like, usually the Force Ghost stuff, like, the Padawan's, like, teacher is...
Technically, Obi-Wan never taught him anything.
Yeah, true. He just lied to him most of the time.
Yeah, he's a liar.
That's why all those lies, you don't make it to Force Ghost him. Well, he's done it before.
Force Ghost him. That's pretty good. Another great line...
He's done it before, so never mind.
Another great line in that part is when Yoda burns the tree down.
It's the best.
And Luke is like freaking out, "But the books!" And Yoda goes, "That library contains nothing that Rey doesn't already possess." And we understand that later on in the film.
She literally steals the book.
She stole the book. So
she ransacked the joint before she left.
And
savage.
In true Force Ghost manner, they don't explain the full picture, just enough for what the person that they're trying to commune with will understand and like get out of it. Basically, like, Yoda's telling him, "Move on. It's not just about these old books."
Yeah.
They weren't page turners.
I think the books are still pretty important, and they have stuff that she needs to know.
Yeah.
But I like that he clarifies it's not things that she already knows, it's something that she already doesn't possess.
Yes.
So it's literally in her possession. But I think the concept of Rey, like, running and stealing the books before she left, poor Luke, like, she didn't know that he was gonna die soon. So, like, maybe that was his only form of entertainment, and you just left him with nothing to do. Like,
yeah.
That's sad.
I guess we were talking about Luke's new ability to project himself over long distances, and I'm totally okay with the fact that, like, that was what killed him. How did you feel about that? Like, how did you feel about his end?
I thought it was really beautiful.
Yeah.
And seeing him looking up at the two suns and, you know, then his cloak flying away, I don't know who didn't, like, tear up at that. I was, like, tearing up a lot during this film for some reason.
Mostly when Carrie was on screen.
Yeah, that's, to me, like, any scenes with... Because I love her so much, so I was just like... Ugh.
There were so many scenes that, like, with Carrie, that I felt like couldn't have been included in, like, the original filming of the script. But no, she's there in every scene. Like, these aren't just lines to, like, as a good goodbye for...
Yeah, these are just...
These are just... Which kind of just layers this film so much for me. How beautiful, like, and reverent they give... How much reverence they give to that character.
Yeah. By the way, I read that Gary Fisher, her dog, is in the film, and I've seen it twice, and I can't find him. If someone could comment where he is, if you've seen him, I want to see him so bad.
Yeah.
I was so excited. I was excited for his film debut.
Maybe he's the voice of the Vulptexes, because they do have, like, dog voices.
Maybe. Maybe that's how he's doing it? Yeah, I don't know. I was, like, looking for him in that casino scene, and I did not see him. But yeah, no, I thought that, you know, for Luke, that was a really good ending. I don't know if everyone agrees with that, but I thought, too, you know, he was really, you know, in the Jedi fashion, like, didn't fully explain himself, like, just went through and sacrificed himself and did what he needed to do, and kind of left them to figure it out, you know, and everybody to figure it out as it went on.
Yeah.
And I loved his one line that he said twice in the film to both Rey and Kylo, everything you just said was wrong. And it's like, don't tell them. Yeah, every word in that sentence was wrong. Like, not correcting them, just telling them, like, you need to correct yourself. Like, figure it out. You know, I really like that, and I think I'm going to start using that. Like, when people say really, like, just ridiculous things.
Ooh,
like,
that's harsh.
Everything you just said was wrong.
That's really harsh, Jen. As far as, like, was I ready to let Luke go? No, but no one ever is.
Yeah, no.
You know? And that was a common complaint I saw with some people, was that, like, you didn't feel like Luke had enough, or had done enough in this new trilogy to let him go. And ultimately, would you ever have enough Luke in your Star Wars? That said, this isn't the end for Luke, obviously. As we've seen countless times with Jedi, I mean, it's not countless, it's probably like 4 times. With Jedi, they can come back after they have been consumed by the Force. And what's great is that it paralleled what happened to Obi-Wan in the very first film. He sacrificed himself so that the rebels could get away, or the resistance could get away. How great is that parallel? And he went out on he went out in style, definitely. Like, he showed us the limit, or the outer limits of this new Force power that we're all just kind of getting acquainted with. He didn't just go out like a chump like Qui-Gon did. He didn't go out like your average Jedi. He went out on his own merit, and he probably could have stayed alive after that had he wanted to.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I'm sure the caretakers could have, like, helped him out a little bit. But his grasp of the Force, his grasp of knowing, like, this is my time, this is how it's gonna end, I thought that was just beautifully done. But let's talk about Leia.
Oh, Leia.
And her new Force ability.
Yeah. Favorite Leia line? Go.
Favorite Leia line?
Or I should say mine, because you're going to take mine.
Yep, I'm going to take yours. Go ahead.
Get your head out of your cockpit.
Get your head out of your cockpit.
I thought that was great.
Excellent. I can't remember any other Leia lines.
Well, I liked the one where, you know, that other chick said it to Poe. Leia was still sleeping. But it was, hope is like the sun. If you only believe in it when you see it, you'll never get through the night. I really like that.
Wow, that's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty.
Because the woman starts, I'm blanking on her name, the general, and then Poe finishes it like, "You'll never make it through the night. I know, but I'm still ending your plans." Like, it was said in kind of like a dismissive way on Poe's end, but I thought that was a really powerful quote.
Yeah. Another thing. Let's talk about specifically her. When she gets sucked out of, like, into space, I think a lot of people thought, oh, so this is how they wanted to end that
Yeah, and
character.
I was actually, like, when she first got sucked out, I was a little bummed, because I'm like, did they cut out everything else she filmed for the movie just to kill her off right now? Just because she actually died, you know?
And I respect Rian Johnson so much for not killing her off in this film unceremoniously, because that's not what she filmed.
Mm-hmm.
He allowed her last performance to be done in completion.
Yeah.
To fruition. That's fantastic. I'm so happy that they didn't kill her off.
And I loved how much more of a role she played in this film.
She did great in this film.
Yeah, she did really great.
I keep skirting back to the Force power because that's a very divisive point in the film. I'm very happy that we finally got to see a Force power for Leia.
Yeah, well, that's something I've always wanted, and I always felt like, I know a lot of people will disagree with me on that. When I first watched the original trilogy, and then I knew she was kind of Force sensitive, I wish that it had manifested in some way. And I know, like, in the comics and stuff, she has a little bit more going on, but I'm really happy that they showed it in film. Some people felt like she, like, kind of floated awkwardly through, but for me it was so emotional that I didn't even think about it looking awkward. I just thought the music was fantastic in that scene, and I just thought it was really well done. I'm
sure they had several different ways of portraying that scene, and I think that's what just looked the best. Because think about, like, it's a character who's trying to go through space. She's trying to traverse space on her own with no oxygen or anything like that. It could either be what she basically did was like a tractor beam straight to the ship. But she could have easily just like did like a pull with the Force and just kind of passed out and just floated back. That would have been cool for me too.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Don't think it would have been as powerful, especially with the John Williams music playing in the background, the Leia theme. Like, oh gosh, that was
beautiful.
It was both beautiful and kind of off-putting the way it looked. But
Well, you made a good point yesterday. We were talking about it, and you said that because she was in space, there was no like gravitational forces holding her back or restricting her, so it really wouldn't have taken that much power to pull her in.
Yeah.
Not like if she was on a planet and trying to pull herself and facing,
It would have just needed that initial tug because there's no friction in space. There's nothing there's no things pushing you back. So
that also makes a lot of sense why in that situation she would be able to do something she's never done before.
Right. That doesn't mean she can fly. She's already floating. She just needs to project where she's going.
She can fly!
Yeah, it doesn't... It was cool seeing Luke fly, though. He was just like...
Yeah.
Oh, man. Luke is such a...
He's so cool.
So cool.
And some people online I saw had written, like, Luke didn't accomplish much. That means after, the original trilogy, like, basically he developed a school and then it got wiped out and then he just dipped. And they're like, well, he had accomplished so much... in the original trilogy that he should have, like, kept that going. But I don't think that's how life works. People change. People change, and people don't keep moving at the pace that we want them to move.
Imagine if you felt that your nephew, or that you were solely responsible for your nephew's path to the dark side, essentially.
Yeah.
And that now he was terrorizing the galaxy because of your failure.
Yeah, and people go through traumatic things like that shut them down.
That would push a lot of people into... hermitude.
Yeah, and I feel like
solitude.
Hermitude. I feel like he accomplished so much in his in those brief years that many people don't accomplish in an entire lifetime. So I mean, he's earned some time to be a hermit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I do think to expect a character to stay exactly the same at the same pace and unwavering and not changing, that doesn't sound human to me.
I know a lot of people are saying that's not my Luke. He would never have a moment where he would try to kill someone. He tried to strike his father down.
Well, I mean, he was asked to, so...
Okay. But he was about to kill his father and he showed mercy.
Yeah.
Remember? Do you guys remember that? Something very similar to...
But I think it was just a gut reaction.
Exactly.
Think about that too. Okay, let me think of a reactory thing.
But yeah, a lot of people were saying they couldn't see Luke making that choice to even briefly pretend or have that notion to kill someone who has gone to the dark side. I don't buy that for a second, seeing how we saw Luke flirt with the dark side throughout the original trilogy. He never succumbed to it, which he didn't in this film either, that we know of. He could totally do that, and I would totally buy that in a moment of weakness he would pull that out and try to fix things before another Vader was on the loose.
Yeah. I think too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is that a moment where he's going against his training and allowing fear leads to anger, which that's what I meant, anger with him and then hatred between each other and then suffering on both ends.
Maybe.
Could that be a safe conclusion to come to? Because he did say he was afraid of what Kylo could become. And he acted on it just for a brief second. I don't think for a second that Luke would have actually followed through with it.
Yeah. The Finn and Rose storyline. Let's discuss that a little bit because that was a significant portion of the film. Had that side story not existed, I would have been a lot happier with the movie. I felt it was shoehorned to give Finn something to do in this film, as well as Poe. Because they're both very strong-willed characters, and if they don't know the full picture, they will act. I just feel that entire storyline ultimately was pointless, because the people who were actually in charge had better plans anyway.
But I think that's the whole point. It's
I get that.
Poe thought he had a better plan, and he failed, because he wasn't humble enough to accept direction. I think that's a good lesson in a film.
It's a good lesson in a film. But they took valuable screen time from stuff that was actually interesting. and actually entertaining.
Like?
What was happening with Rey. I would have loved to see more of her going into the Force Cave. I would love to see a potential Obi-Wan character. I would love to have seen more from Snoke. I would have loved to have seen
Yeah, that's true.
Luke
That's
do
where
something with the Force. I would have loved to see so much.
That's, that's true. To me, those, what are they called? Fathiers were worth it every second. I loved those. They were like a mix between a fennec fox and a horse. And
That's
I want
true.
one. I want one so bad. Like, they're, and like, brilliant, fast creatures of the night.
Of the night. Wow, okay. They are bred for speed.
They are, that's what the book says. They're bred for speed.
The visual dictionary.
Yeah,
you guys
we were going through it yesterday together. It's a lot of fun.
should check it out.
It's very small, though. Not a lot in there.
I'm a little confused why the Rogue One visual dictionary is literally
Huge.
twice the size of both the Force Awakens visual dictionary and the Last Jedi visual dictionary.
Yeah, there's just literally, like there's... The book was written for people who haven't even seen the film yet, which I'm really confused by, because I feel like, why are you buying that book without seeing the movie?
Yeah.
And, like, reading it before seeing the movie? Like, I think it should be implied that spoilers are in there, but there's no spoilers that I'm aware of, and that kind of irritated me a little. Because it's like, you're really limiting yourself here. Is there going to be, like, a spoilery edition to make me spend more money? Like, how does this work, Disney? Tell me.
Like, okay, so the Force Awakens visual dictionary is 80 pages. The Last Jedi visual dictionary is also 80 pages. This bad boy for Rogue One, 200 pages. Why does the anthology film have more than the sequel films?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Pablo!
And I think I'm paying the same amount. Oh no, this was way more expensive. Okay. Anyway.
Alright, well, there you have it. It's money!
Pablo, why is this happen?
Pablo, we love you, but we're a bit confused.
Alright, let's round this discussion of The Last Jedi off with the reveal that Rey is a nobody.
Not buying it.
Why, Jen?
Because Kylo is... Well, first of all, okay, there's two possible things here. One, Kylo could just be lying. I really wouldn't put it past the guy. Two, Snoke says that he brought Kylo and Rey together, and I feel like he showed them what they each wanted to see.
Right, and he actually does explain that that's what happened, because he kind of like mocks Rey for her like thinking that he could be turned. He's shown Rey a future that allows her to believe that Kylo Ren can basically take everyone in the room alongside her. I think the same goes for what he showed Kylo Ren in terms of what he needed to tell Rey to get her on his side. Basically that she's a nobody. Now...
Like, it's like when you have nothing left to lose.
Or nothing to gain.
Yeah, that would be the easiest thing to do, but her principles kept her from going that route.
Right.
And also, too, that explanation, oh, you're a nobody, doesn't explain why he seemed to understand who she was in The Force Awakens, why Han seemed to know who she was in The Force Awakens, why Han would then convey that message to Maz and Leia. That doesn't make any sense to me that she's a nobody. Hey, by the way, this Rey chick, I've heard of her, even though she's from nowhere and her parents are alcoholics. Whoa!
And
like, that doesn't make any sense.
In the flashback scene that we have of Rey, it's not that her family left her for a little bit of alcohol money. They literally went on a starship and left the planet. We saw her, like, looking at a ship flying away.
Yeah,
Someone
that's true.
left her on this planet. I don't buy it. There is the case that Rian Johnson just didn't feel like who she really is or what her lineage is important, and a lot of that is kind of prevalent in this film, especially with
Well, maybe they shouldn't have teased it so much.
Right. Well, again, I think this is a very reactionary film. I think that he kind of just... Not that he wanted to throw a monkey wrench into everyone's theories, rather. He didn't think it was necessary for the character herself, and he didn't want to dwell on that. Because ultimately, someone's going to be let down, and that's going to be a vocal either minority or majority, and that'll dampen someone's enjoyment. But I feel that by just making everyone angry or everyone satisfied, he did a pretty interesting job of just like that was a very huge reveal for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy with it.
I'm not.
I don't believe it's real. I don't
I'm
buy
not happy
it.
with it. Yeah, I don't buy it for a second.
And it's pretty telling, actually, in a recent interview, Rian Johnson did say, like, in that moment, Kylo Ren believed wholeheartedly.
He specified that he believed it, not that it was true.
Right.
So, yeah, that proves my thing wrong that he's lying, if Rian Johnson said that.
Right. And in that scene where they touch hands, notice a very interesting music plays, and it would be the Skywalker theme. So, thought that was pretty cool.
I actually don't think that they're related.
No,
Call me crazy. I don't think that they're related. Because I feel like that obviously would have come up.
maybe.
But I do think it's odd that Han didn't tell her, Leia didn't tell her, and
Luke, actually, like, why would they send you? Like, why wouldn't my sister come? Why wouldn't...
yeah, there were so many other people that would have fit the bill for this mission.
And that was my biggest concern with after The Force Awakens, like, of all people to send to Luke, who, this girl who has some Force abilities? Like, that's kind of random.
Yeah. And I think, too, like, if you notice, Rey wasn't the one who convinced Luke to help her. It was R2, and it was R2 using Leia's message. So Leia would have been 100 times better to go. I mean, she was a little busy at the moment, don't get me wrong. She has a job to do. She's a working woman. But I just felt like if, like, he really is an asset to the Resistance, and I don't know, they should have prioritized that. If it wasn't for something important.
Yeah. So, all right. We've talked long enough about
I feel like I
this
still have
film.
so much to say.
I know.
But
I think we'll do a few, I guess, theory videos after this. I specifically want to talk about Snoke and my current theory on him. I specifically want to talk about why Luke looked so young in that scene, because I have I don't know if it's a solid theory, but I have a theory as to why that happened, why he portrayed himself that way. And I also want to talk a little bit more about Rey's parentage.
I mean, we didn't really get much, but...
No, we didn't. We didn't get a lot in the way of answers, but those are still 3 questions that are bugging me. What did you guys think of The Last Jedi? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Are you somewhere in the middle? I think a lot of people are in the first or second camp, and not so much the middle. But we really liked it. I really didn't like the Finn and Rose storyline. I thought Rose was...
I liked her. And I took a BuzzFeed quiz, and it said that out of the whole movie, I would be Rose. So if you don't like her, you don't like me. Because BuzzFeed tells me who I am.
That's settled then. And if you watched my Easter egg video for the Ready Player One trailer, you'll find out that BuzzFeed will exist in the 2040s. It's a shame.
Yeah.
We did not do a Geekly vlog last week. We
Which
were
we're really
very,
sorry about.
very busy. She was out there in Virginia. I was home working on a very extensive Easter egg video for something we just spoke about. But I did want to go over a little bit of the answers that we received on last week's poll, because a lot of you did vote in. So we asked you guys what's better, The Force Awakens or Rogue One? And some of you were very... It's funny, we didn't get anyone who was just like, I really liked both. People either like The Force Awakens or Rogue One. They're 2 very different films. One is a little more original. One is a more unique concept. The other is more sequential, much more fluid, and I think ultimately a better movie by itself.
Yeah, to me there really isn't an argument. Like, I'm confused about how this could be, like, some people saying Rogue One over The Force Awakens. Call me a lunatic.
Who do you think won?
I hope The Force Awakens, but most people that I meet say Rogue One, and I'm still like...
Well, 59% of you voted for Episode 7, The
Whoop,
Force
whoop!
Awakens. 41% of you voted for Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. And we don't really have much time to read comments because we're supposed to be going over our friend's house in a little bit. So, we do recommend reading some of your comments, like going to our community tab and looking through the comments, because there's some really interesting points of view here. And don't forget to vote in on this week's Geekly poll, because we do plan to do a Geekly vlog this week, where we discuss how Disney is handling Star Wars so far. And we have a number of options for you to choose from, like anywhere from Disney is handling it like fantastically and better than any other studio could, to Disney is killing Star Wars. So definitely check that out. And we've gotten some really interesting responses so far. Already 546 votes on that one.
Oh, holy smokes, guys.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right.
So, thank you guys so much for watching. We know this was a long video. If you made it this far, we totally forgot to talk about the Porgs, guys, but we liked them. 2 thumbs up.
Pretty cute all around.
And-
Making nests in the Millennial.
Yes, in the Millennium
Millennium?
Falcon. Yeah.
Did I just say?
In the Millennial. Also, BB-8 I found really annoying in this film. I didn't like BB-8 at all. I don't know. He was one of my favorite characters in The Force Awakens, and he was
Really?
just handled really poorly to me. He looked fake the entire movie.
So yeah, how do I not see these things? He didn't look fake to me.
It
I thought
was
he was
weird.
like a little OP. Like, how does he manage to do all these things? Like, it's just because it's happening off screen, so I'm like, no, literally, how did he do it? But I still thought he was cute.
If you've watched up to this point, we want you to comment either Fathiers or Volptex. Which did you like better?
I love the chandelier noise that the Volptex made when they ran around. I thought that was really well done.
I love the eyes of the Fathiers.
Oh, they're so beautiful.
What did you guys think? Let us know.
Bye.
Bye, guys.